9 minutes to 6. Who will write the history of this period? The man who did put a lot of history into well-regarded plays at one time was Shakespeare, with a little dramatic license. We did wonder how he might be viewing events. Unfortunately, he's no longer around, but we have the next best thing. Shakespearean scholar Sir Jonathan Bates, who joined us now from our Oxford studio. And this is going to be illustrated with Tom Conti, who's recorded some Shakespearean lines for us. Hope this suitably captures the drama of the moment. Jonathan, what can Shakespeare's plays tell us about the chaos we find ourselves in now, do you think?
Well, good evening, Evan. You're there in the tent. I'd rather think of Richard III on the night before the Battle of Bosworth. But really, this moment reminds me of numerous scenes towards the climax of Shakespeare's tragedies and history plays, where disaster follows upon misunderstanding and chaos builds upon conflict. I keep thinking of his phrase, the division of the kingdoms, in his bleakest tragedy. We've got England, Scotland, Wales and Ireland all wanting different things, and that very much reminds me of the lines of the fool in King Lear.
Then shall the realm of Albion come to great confusion.
Great confusion indeed. We've had vote after vote, with the clock ticking on ever closer and closer to midnight, exactly as in the fifth act of some great tragedy of state. Just when you think it can't get any more chaotic, it does, as Macduff says in Macbeth.
Confusion now hath made his masterpiece.
These great lines from Tom Conti, they are very short, aren't they? We haven't given him very long. OK, so Jonathan, did Shakespeare give us the Britain's relationship with Europe a theme? Was that much of a theme in Shakespearean plays?
Well, yeah, Evan, it was very much indeed. We need to remember that many of the history plays are set during the 100 Years' War with France. Well, fortunately, we're not at war, but it does sometimes feel as if the Brexit negotiations have been going on for 100 years. We need, of course, to remember also that Shakespeare was writing in a time when there was a break from Europe in the form of King Henry VIII's divorce from the Roman Church. The EU began with the Treaty of Rome, and the sorts of consequence of British-European relations were indeed something that Shakespeare was profoundly concerned with, as were his audiences and the politicians of his time. At least this time round, there is no actual blood on the floor as yet, but one does rather feel, as in his King Henry VI plays, that
all is on the rout. Fear frames disorder, and disorder wounds where it should guard.
Right. What about the Prime Minister? Many would, I think that's probably one of the more tragic themes of trying so hard and being so humiliated.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I mean, leaders losing their authority is a very common theme in Shakespeare. He was fascinated by the image of the wheel of fortune, the inexorable process of the rise and fall of politicians. There always comes a moment when you visibly see the leader losing their grip. Theresa May is now in the position of Mark Antony after he loses the battle in Antony and Cleopatra.
Authority melts from me.
Melts from her, yeah. But the wonderful thing about Shakespeare is that he's a seasoned, astute observer of political process and conflict, of ambition and backstabbing. But he always focuses on the human element, the emotional side of things. When you saw the Prime Minister on the news last night, you couldn't help but feel sorry for how tired she was, like Shakespeare's failing monarchs. Her croaking voice and hunched, defeated figure bending over the dispatch box reminded me of some lines applied to Macbeth as he fails to live up to the expectations of high office.
Now does he feel his title hang loose upon him, like a giant's robe upon a dwarfish thief.
We're certainly in the fifth act of the history, or maybe even the tragedy, of Theresa May. It feels as if we have a careworn leader on the brink of a resignation speech along the lines of the abdication of Richard II, for whom everything began to go wrong because he couldn't get his barons to agree an Irish backstop.
No deeper wrinkles yet? Hath sorrow struck so many blows upon this face of mine and made no deeper wounds? O flattering glass, like to my followers in prosperity, thou dost beguile me. Was this the face that every day under his household roof did keep 10,000 men? Was this the face that, like the sun, did make beholders wink? Was this the face that faced so many follies, and was at last outfaced by Bolingbroke. A brittle glory shineth in this face, as brittle as the glory is the face.
King Richard II. Thank you to the wonderful Tom Conti reading those lines for us, many of them very short, and to Jonathan Bate for the Shakespearean Brexit analysis. Right, 4 minutes.